This evening, we would like to discuss about two policies. One is for the health service worker, Grace, and the other one is for a person who work with children, for aggressive people, to protect how to raise. How to manage the emergency procedure if the client is aggressive towards you.
Okay.
All right. Who do you want to start with? Grace?
Mm-hmm.
All right. For Grace, we have developed risk management for community workers in the health service delivery. That will minimize the risk in your work area. First of all, we would like you to know the roles and responsibility that you have in your work area. Every staff member is responsible for his or her safety at all times. He or she needs to be protected themselves by taking immunization. Immunization is one of the standard precaution. Okay, like we use standard precaution normally, but then if there is an outbreak, we use additional precaution. So additional precaution may be required if there is outbreak. How do you know there is outbreak? We may know there is we consider it's outbreak when there are 2 or more cases confirmed.
Okay.
Yeah. So we will also appoint WHS focal, and he or she will be responsible for regular checkup of the hazard and identification, risk control, blah blah blah. I will mention the detail of the WHS roles later. And then every staff has the responsibility to educate the community to protect them from any kind of risk. And every staff has to obey the guidance of the manager or the owner of the organization. All staff have the duty to obey. All staff must wear personal protective equipment. Okay, can you mention one of the personal protective equipment? Any of you?
Gloves.
Yes, gloves. Do you know how to wear gloves?
Yes.
Gloves. I won't show you how to wear gloves anymore because you know how to wear glove. If there's an outbreak, you have to double glove yourself.
Okay.
One glove is not enough. Putting glove doesn't mean that you don't have to wash your hand. You have to change your glove all the time. Regularly. All right. And you have to report any kind of hazard. We will provide you with a document which is hazard report form.
Mm-hmm.
So you will have to fill out the hazard report form as soon as you identify any hazard. You will be trained to do You will be trained to do any kind of job. So if you're not trained in that area, do not perform any task. You have to work within your scope of practice. You have to follow the policy and procedure given by the PCBU. That means that the organization. Okay. Okay. Now, who is the WHS focal? If we appoint WHS focal, he or she should identify the hazard regularly and have to assess all the risks, and he or she have to find out, like in the nursing area, Grace, you always have to find out what kind of sickness is happening around. as soon as you identify, you will have to report and what kind of sickness is likely to happen. Okay, how do you control the risk in this area? First, we use the removing approach. If you can remove the hazard, you remove it, right? Like the disease, if there's some disease coming up, if you can cure it or kill it, you kill with the medicine. If you cannot, you isolate the person, and then you use the engineering method, like immunization for people who haven't got infected. And you also use PPE, personal protective equipment, like wearing mask, glove, and apron, things like that. And you also use administrative approach, like you have to give knowledge or information sharing through poster, notice board, or through radio and other kind of media. WHS focal should always monitor the risk. And then in your work area, information and data collected from any client should be kept confidential at all times. In case you need referral to any doctor or any person important or necessary, that you need to get consent from the client. Unless you get consent, you cannot share any information. So if you breach that confidentiality, what do you think is going to happen? You lose your contract. Yes.
Contract, yes.
And then you can go against legal action. All right. If any policy is breached, termination from employment and legal action will be taken. So, Toy and Scott, do you have anything to add for this policy? Are you clear about it?
Yep.
When you're talking about gloves, masks and aprons, are we also looking at sometimes depending on what sickness is involved,
Yes.
wearing boot coverings, shoe coverings?
Yes, shoe covering.
Would add to that, because I mean, if somebody's throwing up on the floor, even though you're mopping the floor down, it is still best to wear disposable shoe coverings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that that stops the spread of the disease from coming anywhere else. I mean, especially if you walk in somewhere where somebody's just thrown up, you're better off having your disposable footwear on straight away. So I would suggest that if that one of the things saying if somebody is ill and throwing up, then nobody's to enter the room without foot coverings, and then to remove foot coverings before they leave the room, so that we're not spreading the disease down the hallway by walking it here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah. Correct. I will add that information to the policy, and we will finalize. Thank you very much, Scott, for your contribution. Now let's go to the emergency procedure for an aggressive client. All right. If you have aggressive client, what kind of emergency procedure we can take? For example, if it's a mild behavior, not physical aggressiveness, then what can we do? Such as body language, like it's aggressive with the body language, angry with the eyes, and then the mouth, whatever. You have to be assertive and be open. You have to ask open-ended questions. Do not ask a complicated question anymore. You have to be calm and do not show any changes on intimidation. position yourself toward the doors. Like if you have to get ready to get out of the door. And then you have to remove any equipments that might be used as weapon, like
It's a weapon.
that the client might use to harm you. So this should be done before you get into the room. You have to alert the manager and other staff member. And you have to divert the subject into other less sensitive topic. Document the incident and report to the manager. Refer to the clinical psychologist for behavior change afterward. Okay, for example, if the client is physically aggressive, that is a bit more to do. Physical assault is a criminal act. Therefore, it needs to be referred to the police. Caseworker or case manager should immediately call the police and report to the manager. Then the manager will inform all the staff in the room to stay safe and to lock the doors. The workers will need to remove himself or herself from the client's room and lock the client in. Incident report needs to be documented and referral needs to be made to clinical psychologist for behavior change. For your information, do not forget about duty of care and workplace duty of care at workplace and confidentiality about the client. Knowledge, because what happens if you bleach those ethical value?
Criminal case.
Yes. For duty of care, usually it's like you harm somebody, like this other staff member got hurt because of the aggressive person, then you can be sued.
Correct.
So you will have to face against the law. You have to know about the history of the person, the client, even before you talk to them, so that you can avoid such kind of aggressiveness. You have to do a review of incident and injury report if there is any injury during that time. And you have to thoroughly do assessment of new people receiving support and services, monitoring existing one to identify or trigger for aggressive behavior. And then removing anything that may trigger violence. Developing a person-centered behavior support plan. When you write the plan, look at the person. It should be person-centered behavior approach. If you know that the person is aggressive, then you have to avoid being with him alone. You invite somebody else to come with you in the room. And as the PPE or personal protective equipment, I would suggest you have the buzzer with you all the time so that you can press the buzzer as soon as there is something serious or abusive behavior. Alright, do you have any contribution to this policy? Or if you don't understand, you can ask.
No, that's fine. Are we going to take, it's best to take it, we make any note in the file of any aggressive behaviour, whether it's mild or not.
Yes.
And especially put it against a client's
Yes.
name, because then we can see in the folder whether it's escalating, whether it's just an occasional thing,
Yes.
and whether they're a violent type of person and do need to have something done, because